Hello, and welcome to a series where I read short, spooky stories. The Whispers in the Woods. It was supposed to be a perfect weekend. No cell service, no work, just three best friends, Jake, Emily, and Ben, out in the Black Forest with a tent, a roaring fire, and a cooler full of beer. Jake had picked the spot. He was always the adventurous one, pushing them towards thrill-seeking experiences. It's totally isolated, he had bragged. No other campers, no rangers breathing down our necks. Ben had hesitated. Isn't this the place where those hikers went missing? Dude, that was years ago, Jake scoffed. People get lost in the woods all the time. Doesn't mean there's a freaking monster here. Emily laughed then, but now, sitting around the fire on the first night, she didn't find the idea so funny. The woods felt too quiet. Even the wind barely rustled the trees. Then, just as she was about to voice her discomfort, she heard it. A whisper. It was faint, just at the edge of hearing, like a conversation carried on the wind. Emily shivered. Did you guys hear that? Ben frowned. What? Whispers. Jake smirked. Ghosts telling you campfire secrets? Emily rolled her eyes, but as the fire crackled and the darkness thickened, the whispers didn't stop. They weren't words, at least, not in any language she understood, just murmuring. And then, snap, a twig breaking. Emily stiffened. Okay, that wasn't my imagination. Ben grabbed the flashlight and shone it into the trees. The beam cut through the dark, revealing nothing but endless branches. Probably an animal, Jake muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. They sat in uneasy silence for a while before finally calling it a night. The next morning, they tried to shake off the unease. They hiked, swam in the lake, and by sunset they had convinced themselves that last night was nothing. Until the whispers returned. They started earlier this time, before the fire was even fully lit, and they were closer. Ben gritted his teeth. Tell me you hear that now. Jake clenched his fists. Okay, screw this. He grabbed the hunting knife from his pack and stormed into the woods. Jake, wait! Emily called, but he was already gone. A minute passed, then 5, then 10. Jake, Ben called, his voice cracking. Silence. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate. Jake stepped out of the dark. Emily exhaled in relief until she saw his face. His expression was blank, his arms limp at his sides. Jake? Ben asked. Then Jake smiled. But it wasn't right. His lips stretched too wide, teeth glinting in the firelight. The skin around his mouth bulged as if something inside was pushing against it. A deep, unnatural twitch jerked his head to the side, and then from the darkness behind him, the whispers began again. Only this time, they were repeating his name. Jake, Jake, Jake. Ben and Emily froze. Jake took a step forward, his movements jerky, like a puppet on strings. His fingers twitched unnaturally. Emily's throat went dry. You're scaring me. Jake just smiled wider. Then his mouth opened, and something spoke through him. But it wasn't his voice. It was many voices, overlapping, distorted. Stay with us. A shadow shifted behind Jake. Something was there, tall, thin, wrong. Its limbs were too long, its eyes just pits of darkness. Jake twitched again. His body convulsed like something was wearing him. Emily screamed. Ben grabbed her arm. Run! They bolted, crashing through the underbrush, branches whipping at their faces. The whispers followed them, turning into laughter. Emily tripped, hitting the ground hard. Ben yanked her up. Behind them, the whispers grew louder, closer. Then, Emily risked a glance back. Jake was standing at the edge of the firelight, but something was stepping out of his body. It peeled itself away from him like a shadow unraveling from flesh. And it was still smiling. Ben yanked the car door open, shoving Emily inside. She fumbled with the keys, heart pounding as she turned the ignition. The headlights flicked on, illuminating the tree line. Jake stood there. Only it wasn't Jake anymore. And then he started walking towards them. Ben screamed, Drive! Emily slammed the gas pedal. The last thing she saw in the mirror was Jake, head twitching, his mouth still stretched into that unnatural smile. The police never found him. But sometimes campers in the Black Forest still hear whispers at night, and if you listen closely, you can hear them calling a name. Jake, Jake, Jake.